Good evening, everyone. Severe Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan Shutt here. Wanted to give you an update on where we do stand with flooding across the Ohio Valley. Not only with those current conditions, but of course, right now we're taking a very close eye on the water levels rising along the Ohio River, which anticipated to crest tomorrow evening. So we're going to get to that here in just a few minutes in terms of the forecast for the crest tomorrow evening, and taking a closer look at impacts more on a community to community basis. But as people are filtering in here, again, we'll get to that in a few minutes. But as people are currently filtering in, we're going to take a more of a look at current conditions right now, which we do have a flood warning that's in effect. The National Weather Service office at Pittsburgh has actually just extended this until 2 o'clock overnight, 2 o'clock tomorrow morning. It was in effect till 8 o'clock this evening, but they've extended it till 2 a.m. Still just dealing with some high water in spots. Again, it's just these rounds of rain that we've had today, just prolonging some areas of high water. It hasn't been enough to cause any additional spots of high water as we've gone throughout the day, but certainly enough that it can prolong some areas of high water, and they're going to reassess the situation overnight. But as it stands now, they're continuing this flood warning in effect until 2 a.m. These are the same locations that saw a lot of rain yesterday. This was our area where we saw the axis of heavier rain, that we did see some rounds of heavier rain. We saw some thunderstorms in the mix, and those locations under that flood warning are the locations that saw a large swath of 2+ inches of rain. That was the northern panhandle, Tyler, Wetzel, eastern Ohio. The areas highlighted under that flood warning, which again is in effect till 2 a.m. Something else that we have in effect right now, you may have noticed those winds, they're quite gusty. We do have a wind advisory that's in effect until 7 a.m. Saturday morning. We're going to notice in general our winds diminishing as we go through Saturday, but especially tonight, we can see those wind gusts, and this evening as well. We're already dealing with it. We can see wind gusts upwards of 45 miles per hour and winds sustained around 15 to 25 miles per hour as we extend the overnight hours. And again, this wind advisory is in effect till 7 a.m. We'll notice those winds diminishing throughout the day tomorrow, but in general, it's a pretty breezy weekend that we have extending through this weekend. We'll see those wind gusts even into Saturday afternoon, still upwards of 30, 35 miles per hour, just not to the extent of what we're seeing tonight. And then you'll notice winds diminish tomorrow night, but pick right back up Sunday. We can see wind gusts upwards of 35, 40 miles per hour. So by no means are winds going to be light as we go through the second half of this weekend after this wind advisory ends. They're going to pick right back up in the latter part of Sunday. The winds do look lighter than some from Sunday night and into Monday. Charlene says, good evening, Nate from New Manchester. Good evening. Thank you for joining. Thank you for you and Amanda and Jeff keeping us updated. Well, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. So let's jump into our current conditions now. Again, I'm just kind of going over where we stand now to give a chance for people to join in. We're going to touch on the Ohio River forecast here in just a few minutes. So there's the showers continuing across the area right now. Thankfully, a lot of this rain today has been light, and the end is in sight for these rain showers. It'll be through the second half of tonight. So we'll see some of these showers. They can persist even leading up here over the next few hours. We could still have some rain showers, but you'll notice closer to and after midnight tonight that anything lingering will start to taper off, and we're going to be dry then going into Saturday. So good news that we're at least starting the weekend dry, and a lot of the weekend looks dry as well. The bad news is that even as early as about Sunday evening, we can have more showers and thunderstorms move back in, but at least we are going through a good portion of this weekend dry and a good amount of sunshine as well Saturday. But you'll notice we start to advance futurecasts into Sunday, that as we extend later into the day, again, this is going to be likely more towards the evening hours at the end of the day. Then notice those scattered showers and thunderstorms returning, and they'll persist Sunday night, but by Monday we'll dry back up. So, at this point, we're really just hoping for a prolonged period of dry weather, but it just not going to get it, unfortunately. It's just on and off with these rain chances. Now, rainfall amounts for Sunday do not look excessive. Of course, the wild card there is just any thunderstorms. That's going to skew amounts much higher on a local scale. But in terms of general amounts, it's going to stay light, not enough to where flooding is going to be a concern from Sunday evening into Sunday night. But where we do see some thunderstorms, could we pick up closer to an inch in some spots with any thunderstorms? Yes, it's a wild card with those thunderstorms, unfortunately, in the mix. Anytime you have a thunderstorm chance, which we do Sunday evening into Sunday night, we can still get quite a bit of rain. It's just more on a local scale, not a large swath of 2-inch plus amounts of rain that we had from last night. what we saw yesterday into last night, right? Last afternoon into yesterday afternoon into last night. So we're not anticipating anything like that. The precipitation is more scattered from Sunday evening into Sunday night. But it's just unfortunate that as soon as we start to dry back up, we got another round of rain coming our way. In terms of how much rain we saw for today, radar estimated rainfall amounts are for a lot of locations about a trace to a half of an inch. So again, good news that those rainfall amounts have stayed light today, and any additional rainfall amounts we do get from these lingering showers, it's going to be within a trace to a tenth of an inch for most locations. This is very light from what remains here over the next few hours, from what these lingering light rain showers are before they taper off. And I will say as well, in terms of when it comes to the flooding along the Ohio River, if you tuned in last night, I discussed how when it comes to forecasting the water levels along the Ohio River, it's always going to be accurate, much more accurate when after the rain has already fallen. So trying to predict the water levels along the Ohio River yesterday evening, yesterday night, at that point, the forecast was still for levels to remain below flood stage, which it's not going to happen. Unfortunately, we're reaching back above flood stage by Saturday evening. So the forecast that we have in place now has already taken into account the rain that fell yesterday, last night, not taking into consideration the rain that fell today. But rainfall amounts are so much lighter that changes, yes, we'll probably see the forecast go up a little bit, right? The crest forecast for Saturday evening will likely go up a little bit, could even get bumped back in time a little bit into early Saturday night. But the rain that we had today and the rain we're having tonight, it's not going to be a major impact on the forecast for the Ohio River. It's not going to change much. But we'll discuss here that even minor differences could be a big difference in terms of how far the water levels reach across the area. So jump into a couple more comments and then we'll get to the high river forecast. Are we expecting school closings Monday? Oh, I wouldn't see why we would. I don't anticipate that. No. I heard Dilly Bonham is getting pounded. Matt says, Alex says, WTV News 9 are we expecting? Yeah, I would say no. I wouldn't see a reason why we would from those showers and thunderstorms from Sunday night. Sunday evening into Sunday night. I wouldn't anticipate that. Feel for those having water issues. Starlene says, yes, absolutely. It's horrible. It is horrible sight. So, of course, like I mentioned, the rain that we had tonight is going to be minimal impact to the levels of water rising along the Ohio River. But of course, what has been is the amount of rain we've had as of recent and including last night. And here's where we stand with that. 6.21 inches was the latest reading that I've got for the monthly total at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. This is a staggering amount of rain. Keep in mind, this is just 12 days in. We're not even halfway through this month. And already we're at the third highest monthly rainfall totals on record for the Wheeling area for the month of April, the entire month. And we're not even halfway through. And we're easily beating 1940 at 6.5 inches with more rain in the forecast. We're easily beating that. And at this pace, we're going to even surpass 1901 at 8.24 inches. Just a staggering amount of rain. And here's where we stand through the first 12 days. Look at this. So here's looking at records for the Wheeling area from April 1st through the 12th. Look at the staggering difference. This is double. This is nearly double the values. 3.14 was the old record for the most rainfall from April 1st through April 12th. We're at 6.21 inches. I mean, this is statistically just significant. This is blowing out the second place, what was the previous record, by nearly double. And it's just been a staggering amount of rain. And we had Lou Vargo, the EMA director for Ohio County, explaining, and he's been at this for about 30 years, explaining that he's never seen, in his 30 years in that position, that he's never seen this round of flooding after round of flooding in a matter of days, along the Ohio River. And we're in a terribly historic wet stretch, unfortunately. And we picked up 6.21 inches on average for the entire year is 37.55 for the Wheeling area. So that's roughly about a sixth of the average yearly rainfall that we picked up in a matter of 12 days, not even half a month. We picked up roughly about a sixth of our average yearly rainfall in a matter of just 12 days. Just a horrendous amount of rain, really a horrendous amount of rain. DJ says, is Route 7 in Powhatan Point going to flood again? Yes, I think it will, unfortunately. So let's jump into that now. I know I've been going into a lot of where we stand, look at some of the statistics in terms of the amount of rain that fell, but of course, here is the important part, right? The Ohio River forecast. So let's jump into it. So here is the forecast for the Ohio River. Current levels are at action stage. So we're not currently seeing any flooding up and down the Ohio River, but of course, the forecast crest, which is towards Saturday evening, and it's possible with some of this light rain, it gets pushed back into early Saturday night. But towards the end of your day, Saturday, tomorrow, is when the crest is going to occur. And the forecasted crest is minor to moderate flooding across the area. So, and comparing these values, the forecasted crest, comparing it to what we saw the forecasted crest was, or what we saw the crest was from last week, the differences for a lot of locations is anywhere from around a foot to 2 feet. So, unfortunately, this isn't, drastically less of flooding concerns, unfortunately not, because we're still seeing these forecasted crests within about 1 to 2 feet from last week. Is it going to be as bad as last week? It's not anticipated to be as bad, but again, unfortunately, we're still going to be dealing with some of these impacts. I'm going to run through some of these same impacts that we felt last week. Unfortunately, we're going to be dealing with again. So now we're going to go more community by community, and especially for these communities that we're seeing that higher forecasted crest. We're looking at near Wheeling, Moundsville, Powhatan Point, Hannibal, locations that we're going to see, especially those locations closer to 40, 41, 42 feet, those areas that are anticipated to see that higher crest, and we're really going to highlight, because unfortunately they have the potential to see the most impacts from this flooding. So we're starting with Wheeling. Now the flood stage in Wheeling is 36 feet. The current level again is 33 feet. Now looking at the forecast here closer to 8 o'clock, we're likely going to see it rise here shortly, where it's likely already close to about 35 feet. So not quite reaching flood stage yet, likely, but you'll notice that overnight we will likely reach flood stage. 37 feet's the forecast about 2 o'clock in the morning on Friday. And at that point, 37 feet, you're going to see the racetrack flood on Wheeling Island. 37.7 feet basement flooding along Main Street, and we're likely reaching that by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So unfortunately, if you live along Main Street, be prepared that your basement will likely experience flooding as you're waking up tomorrow morning. Just something to keep in mind, unfortunately. And then by 2 o'clock, 39.3 feet. So by the afternoon hours tomorrow, that's when we'll likely see the southern tip of Wheeling Island flood again, as again, the floodwater anticipated to reach above 39 feet at that point. And you'll see that crest forecasted right now at 39.9 feet, which back earlier, we were talking about how even a subtle change can make a big difference. And this is one of those situations that, yes, the additional rain today can raise those levels by a little bit. I'm not anticipating a lot, but a little bit. But here in this situation, a little bit does matter. At that point, at 40 feet, backwater begins to affect Main Street near the water treatment plant in Wheeling. And that's actually the change in flood stage going to 40 feet. That actually marks moderate flooding for the Wheeling area. So unfortunately, I would be bracing for the potential there to reach 40 feet. Unfortunately, I think it can happen with the additional light rain that we had for today. And again, at that point, backwater begins to affect Main Street near the water treatment plant in Wheeling. Not anticipating water to reach up to 42 feet. At that point, the flooding would reach the intersection of 39th and McCulloch Streets. Not anticipating for it the water to get to that extent. But again, likely to the extent where it's close, if not to the point where backwater begins to affect Main Street. And yes, the Wheeling Island as well, unfortunately dealing with a lot more flooding as we extend into Saturday evening. Sean says water artery in people's basements again. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Sean. This isn't accurate. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, these are the impacts are from the Ohio River Forecast Center. They're given the levels that indicate roughly where we'll be dealing with some of that flooding. And this isn't the whole story. So it could very well be that some of those basements in Wheeling Island, because I don't believe that's talking about Wheeling Island there along Main Street. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, it's likely getting to the point where it's starting to, racetrack floods on the island at 36.6 feet. And again, we're likely already nearing 35 feet. So we're getting very close. It's possible to reach that flood stage at this point. And especially for some of those basements, unfortunately, it is, again, just horrible to see some additional flooding that we're going to be dealing with across the area. So into Moundsville, the current level 34.9 feet. The forecast is reach 37.3 feet here at the 8 o'clock hour. So we're likely already near, if not reaching flood stage into Moundsville at this hour. And at 38 feet, North Marshall Street in Benwood, West Virginia, is closed with Rite Aid, Taco Bell, and KFC impacted in Moundsville. And we're likely seeing those impacts for tonight, even for those locations. Now, at 40 feet, some businesses in the North Plaza parking lot are affected at 40 feet and likely will be affected by tomorrow morning, with the forecasted water level to rise at 40.5 feet by tomorrow morning. Now, 41 feet, at that point, the river rises to reach the railroad tracks in Moundsville in the 13th Street area. So we're likely at that point by tomorrow afternoon, getting to that point in Moundsville where the water has likely risen to that extent in Moundsville in the 13th Street area by tomorrow afternoon. The forecasted crest is closer to 41.5, can be a bit more than that, over 41.5 feet by tomorrow evening in Moundsville. It's not anticipated to reach to the extent where water begins to affect Monarch Stadium and the Marshall County Fairgrounds or Ruby and Diamond Streets being closed. Not anticipated to quite reach that extent in Moundsville tomorrow evening. So sad again, Rita says. It is, isn't it? It is so sad. It is so sad. Like I said, at this point, we're really just, hoping and praying for a dry stretch coming our way. It's not, the forecast is just not there for that. Unfortunately, it's just going to be, we've got some dry days at least. Saturday's dry, a lot of Sundays dry, Monday looks dry, but we deal with a round of some showers and thunderstorms Sunday evening, Sunday night, and then again going into Tuesday, Wednesday, some more showers coming our way. So, we really need a prolonged period of dry weather. Just the forecast is not there for it, unfortunately. So looking at Powhatan Point, now the forecasted crest for Powhatan Point is very close to 41 feet. So this is another situation, just like in Wheeling, that the additional rain we saw today, even though rainfall amounts were light, this can bring a bigger impact to if it's right on the threshold of some of these levels. So at 41 feet, which again, unfortunately, with the additional rain today, I think the potential is there for Powhatan Point to see that water rise to 41 feet, because the forecasted crest, considering the rain last night, it's 40.9. But if it takes into consideration the rain today, unfortunately, I think it can reach to 41 feet. And at that point, that's when most of downtown Powhatan Point south of Katina Creek is flooded. And unfortunately, we can see that again. So if you dealt with that flooding at downtown Powhatan Point last week, be prepared again, unfortunately, as the water likely gets close to that extent again. And yes, the bridge on Route 7, DJ, you had asked earlier, Route 7 and Patton Point going to flood again. Unfortunately, likely will. That's at 40 feet. The bridge on Route 7 over Captina Creek floods, and we're likely going to be reaching that even for tomorrow afternoon. So take that into consideration. If that's your commute home, take that into consideration that for the afternoon commute, we can see Route 7 get closed for the afternoon commute tomorrow there near Powhatan Point. As we can, at that point, when we get 40 feet, and which again is forecasted to get there by the afternoon hours tomorrow, that's when we could see the bridge on Route 7 flood there over Captina Creek, unfortunately. And again, we're getting awfully close by tomorrow evening, early tomorrow night, for most of downtown Powhatan Point south of Captina Creek to flood, with the exception of a small portion of First Street. So unfortunately, we're dealing close to those impacts again, extending into tomorrow evening. Primo Marina will be impacted, Ryan says. Joyce says they have 13th to 4th East Street closed in Moundsville. Thanks for the report there, Joyce. Do you expect next week's rain presenting additional issues, Eric? That's a good question. I don't anticipate what we have coming our way from Sunday evenings and Sunday night to be anything of a major impact. And looking ahead, again, Monday's looking dry. Tuesday, we could have some showers move back in. It's a little too early to say for certain whether we have the potential to see some additional flooding rains coming our way. But do I see that with these rounds of rain that we could get up to another inch at least going over the next week. I think that's very well possible. But in terms of, do we have a setup where we get the training again like we had for last night? It's just a little too early to say for certain, unfortunately. As I think the potential for that at the earliest would be more middle to end of next week, and it's just a little too early to say for certain whether we could be dealing with that. But easily with these rounds of rain, we can unfortunately easily pick up another inch of rain over the next 7 days. I think that's very well possible. Just a too wet of a pattern continues with these rounds of rain. And anytime we have thunderstorms in play too, that's another thing to consider. Now, keep in mind that would be more of a local flood threat with thunderstorms. The reason why we're dealing with some of this additional flooding along the Ohio River is just because of the sheer amount of the large area of 2+ inches of rain. This was a large swath of much of the northern panhandle, extending back into eastern Ohio, extending towards Pittsburgh, Allegheny County. This was a large area that picked up 2+ inches of rain. And anytime you have a large area that picks up that much rain, obviously a lot of that's just, it's filtering right in the Ohio River. And that's where we get the flooding concerns along the Ohio River. It's not a few locations picking up 3+ inches of rain, right? It's a large area that picks up an excessive amount of rain, which is what we saw last night. And that's what we really watch for when it comes to flooding along the Ohio River. So that's why, what we have coming our way Sunday with thunderstorms could yield some, rainfall amounts, possibly in some spots with thunderstorms in the mix. You could always possibly see at least rainfall amounts up to an inch in spots within any thunderstorms. But, that would be more local, right? We're not getting a large swath of an excessive amount of rain like what we did see for last night coming our way Sunday. And, that's the big question then into the second half of next week that we're going to keep a close eye on, is we have that same potential setting up where we do get a bit of a training effect over a large area, just like what we had last night. And that's what we really watch for when it comes to flooding along the Ohio River. So getting back to in New Martinsville, the current level near 30 feet. So the forecast again here is likely risen closer to about 36.6 feet, leading up to the 8 o'clock hour. So at this point, we're likely seeing that flood stage reached there near Hannibal, New Martinsville area. And as we start to look ahead, then by 2 a.m. on a Saturday or 2 a.m. tonight, at that point, at 38.2 feet, we can deal with not only flooding in there, New Martinsville on North Main Street, near Virginia Street, likely already dealing with that, and then also possibly dealing with the lower end of Dewar Street, New Martinsville being flooded. But at the 39.4 feet, we can see that flooding reaching even further into New Martinsville, extending into even into tomorrow, even into the overnight hours. And we'll see that water levels crest closer to about 41 feet as extending into tomorrow evening in New Martinsville. So that was a look at some of the communities, the potential impacts. Again, this is where the areas highlighted, the communities highlighted is where we're likely going to see some of the bigger impacts, unfortunately. And we'll go back to, in case anyone's just joining, look at some of the forecasts. Now, these currents likely need bumped up. So we're concentrating more on the forecast crest. So these currents likely need bumped up at this point, leading up to the 8 o'clock hour. These likely are under what is current. But looking at the forecast crest, specifically, what we're keeping an eye on here is the minor to moderate. That's the forecast for flooding across the Ohio River. And for some locations, we are very close to moderate in Wheeling, 39.9, but at 40 feet, that's moderate flooding. And even with a little bit of rain today, I think it's enough to possibly bump that up to 40 feet. So in some of these spots where it's close, you could bump it up just a little bit from the rain we had today. But in terms of any big changes, it's likely not going to occur. The rain that we saw fall last night and yesterday afternoon, that is a much bigger impact on these levels than the rain that we saw continue for today. Again, it can have some minor impacts. We can see the water levels just a little bit higher than what's forecasted right now, once it's taking into consideration with the forecast that comes out tomorrow morning. And we could see that crest maybe get bumped back a little bit from the evening, more early night. Those are the possible changes that we can see in that forecast by tomorrow morning. Because, if you tuned in last night, last night's forecast was for action stage, didn't even forecast flood stage. And anytime we're forecasting the Ohio River levels, it's one of those situations where the forecast really isn't going to be accurate to what we're going to see until it takes into consideration the rain that has already fallen. And that's exactly what we saw for today. Once it took into consideration the rain that actually fell last night, by this morning, that's when we started to see the forecast crest rise to minor to even moderate levels for Saturday evening, Saturday night. Let's see. Ohio River crest for New Martinsville to show a chart. Yeah, the Ohio River forecast is a good tool. That's a good place to go to. Let's see if I can pull it up for you guys. The Ohio River forecast is a good tool. This is run by the National Weather Service. And this is where you're going to see a lot of the latest updated information from the National Weather Service Ohio River Forecast Center. And let me go back into here and see if I can present this for you. And we're going to do, give me just a minute and we'll pop this up for you guys. Okay, so we're going to bump this up and there we are. It's already up there for you. So we'll go ahead and let's remove this for now. Let's look at this. So this is the page here. So this is weather.gov/OHRFC/ again, if you just Google Ohio River forecast, it'll pop up the National Weather Service Ohio River Forecast Center. And obviously we need to zoom into the Ohio River. All you do is once you scroll in to zoom in, you would just hover over one of these locations and then obviously click on it. So for example, if we go down at Wheeling and we click on it, then it'll pop up another tab, which now it's not going to show, is it? Now it's not going to show. Hold on a second. Let's get this one popped up now. Let's get this one. So it pops up a new tab. It'll look something like this. There we go. So this is what it's going to pop up in a new tab. And this is going to be your chart here, the Ohio River at Wheeling. And so you can follow this along. And then obviously if you move this down the graph here, you see this is 7 o'clock Saturday. This is Saturday evening. And there's the crest that's close to 40 feet. You can see how I was talking about how that 40 feet mark, that's the moderate flood stage. So very close to that is the forecast extending into Saturday evening. So there's 7 o'clock Saturday. And if you go up from there, you'll notice that's right around where we'll see that level's likely crest. Now, what I was discussing about for the impacts is if you scroll down, it gives some very useful information as well right here. So the flood impacts. So this is where I was getting a lot of that information where it helps translate those water levels to the actual impacts. So we were reading a lot of this. There's the backwater flooding begins to affect Main Street. That's a 40 feet. There's Water Street in Wheeling is flooded near the intersections of 12th, 21st, 45th, and 48th Streets at 41 feet. And there's the 42 feet we discussed. That's when flooding reaches the intersection of 39th and McCulloch Streets. Again, likely we're not reaching to that extent, but just to looking at where we're seeing some of these impacts equate to the actual level. So there's a southern tip of Wheeling Island, including Wheeling Downs Racetrack, Gaming, and Wheeling Stadium are flooded. That's at 39 feet. So this is a good tool. If you go to the Ohio River forecast, and of course, this includes not only Wheeling, but a lot of locations up and down the Ohio River. If you go to where you live near one of those locations and select it, it gives you an idea of the timing there of when it's going to crest, the current levels. Not all stations keep up with a good current level. Steubenville typically doesn't have it. Powhatan does, likely will now with the potential for flooding. They'll likely keep up with that. Powhatan Point, but it gives you an idea there with the latest forecast. And again, this could very well change, just some minor changes from the rain today by tomorrow morning. So it is a good idea to stay tuned for the latest on that forecast, which I wouldn't be surprised if it changes just a little bit for tomorrow morning as it takes into consideration the rain that fell today. Again, likely no major changes, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least some minor changes there. For tomorrow morning. Mike says, rain, go away. Absolutely. Go rain, go away. I couldn't agree anymore. Are sure those numbers are right? Where are you getting these numbers? Yeah, this is where I'm getting this information. This is Ohio River Forecast Center. Again, this is a product. This is run by NOAA, National Weather Service. And this is a great tool to have. This is where we're getting all the forecasts for the Ohio River and the impacts that equate to the water level. It's a good tool to have, especially if you live along the Ohio River. It's a good tool to have on hand and keep a close eye on for the latest forecast going into Saturday evening. And yeah, Ryan was saying that. Yeah, absolutely. That's where we're getting that. My yard is still flooded. I want to sue the state of West Virginia for their river damaging my property. A bunch of ducks in my yard river. I'm selling them for $120. $120 for a duck. Wow. Let's see. Mother Nature needs her. Nature just certainly needs to stop bringing all the rain, doesn't it? It certainly does. It certainly does. It needs to stop bringing all the rain. That's for sure. That is for sure. That's for sure. So there's the high river forecast, 36 feet forecasted crest. Did I make a mistake on the New Martinsville? I might have made a mistake on that. So let's go back and look. I might have made a mistake and not had the correct. I might have been looking at a different site, maybe. That might be my bad, guys. Because no, it should be 36. Yep. So that is my fault. So yes, that should be. It looks a lot like Powhatan. Maybe I was still had that data up, but yeah, that's not quite it. We can go to that and actually look at that in New Martinsville, but the forecasted crest is at 36 feet that is Saturday evening. So yes, not reaching to that extent. The Hannibal Lockett Dam, New Martinsville area, the forecasted crest is 36, roughly 36 feet in a Saturday evening, which is what I think that's what you guys were saying, right? Christina, yes, 36.1, roughly 36 feet. Yep. That is correct. That is the correct forecast. Yes. What is the crest going to be for Wheeling Island? So we'll go back to let's pop us back up here. So, all right. So here's a look at the Ohio River forecast. Again, I do apologize. The 36 feet, that is correct. So that is correct for New Martinsville, 36 feet. That's for Saturday evening, 36 feet. So at that point, reaching minor flood stage. That's the Hannibal Lockett Dam. That's near Hannibal, New Martinsville area, forecasted crest towards evening, right around 36 feet. For Wheeling, it's 39.9 feet, very close. So it's going to be very close to 40 feet. But fortunately at 39 feet, that's enough to where we're going to start to see a lot of the southern tip of Wheeling Island flood again. So that includes, the racetrack. It's going to include the casino. It's going to include Wheeling Stadium. We're going to see a lot of, fortunately, the southern portion of Wheeling Island flood again. And again, these forecasted crests for Saturday evening are roughly around 1-2 feet below what we saw for across the area below what we saw for last week. So it's not forecasted to get to the extent of what we had for last week. But, that being said, this is still unfortunately going to be impactful for areas along the Ohio River extending into Saturday evening. So yeah, the crest for Wheeling Island is close to 40 feet is what we're going to see the crest there into Wheeling. That's to the extent nearly 40 feet that we're going to be dealing with that flooding. And now translating that to the impacts, which again, you can get a lot of this on the Ohio River forecast page run by the National Weather Service. The flood stage there in Wheeling, 36 feet. And then you'll see by 39 feet, the southern tip of Wheeling Island floods. And we're likely going to be reaching that by tomorrow afternoon, if not closer to midday tomorrow, is when, unfortunately, we're likely going to get to that extent. And the racetrack flooding on the island, it takes about 36.6 feet. And we're likely going to get that even early tonight. So we're going to be watching for that flooding to start to occur at the racetracks, Wheeling Island, even early tonight. And then basement flooding along Main Street in Wheeling will likely be occurring tonight as well, unfortunately. as we look ahead into tomorrow morning. Then portions of Jacob and Wood Street south of 43rd flood. So we're likely dealing with flooding for those locations by tomorrow morning. And another thing to note as well for Powhatan Point. Again, if your commute takes you around that location on Route 7, the bridge on Route 7 over Captina Creek will likely flood for the afternoon commute tomorrow. So keep that in mind. We're likely dealing with some road closures there on Route 7 near Powhatan Point, and even for locations south, we could see some additional road closures looking into southern, southeastern Ohio along Route 7. So if your afternoon commute tomorrow takes you for those into that location where you're driving over the bridge on Route 7 over Captina Creek, it likely will be closed for the afternoon commute tomorrow, as even before that we'll likely see the water rise to that extent at 40 feet before the afternoon commute. That'll be closer, late morning, midday timeline. That'll be closer to midday that we'll see that likely occur. Now, at 41 feet, most of downtown Powhatan Point south of Captina Creek floods. And again, we're getting awfully close to that. So, be on high alert if you flooded last time in downtown Powhatan Point, because the water's likely getting very close to that extent again, unfortunately, as it crests tomorrow evening. As we'll see that forecasted crest closer to 41 feet. You're welcome, Marina. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. So, unfortunately, just stealing, it's not to the extent of last week, but it's still unfortunate to see. It really is. And the bad news is that, the dry spell that we desperately need is just not in sight. We've got some dry days, and one of those days is tomorrow. Another one's Monday. A lot of Sundays dry. It's just we can't quite shake this at least chance of rain for longer than about a day period. Really, we can't, and that's going to continue into next week as we'll likely deal with some additional rain. In fact, let's jump to the forecast now as we'll start to wrap things up. And if you're just tuning in, don't worry. You can go back and play through this if you're just tuning in and miss some of the information. I will admit the New Martinsville. So when we were discussing that 36 feet, New Martinsville, Hannibal area, the forecasted crest is about 36 feet for those locations. So let's jump into your 9+1 day forecast. And you'll see the showers and thunderstorms that return into the latter part of Sunday. And then Monday will dry back up, and then we can have some additional showers move back in Tuesday, and then some more showers into Wednesday. And yes, you'll see just additional showers and even some thunderstorms second half of Thursday into Friday as well. So again, we just cannot quite shake this rain, and it can get a bit unsettled again into the middle to end of next week. That doesn't mean it's equating to what we saw, a repeat of last night, right? To get a large area of 2+ inches of rain falling last night, this unsettled pattern does not necessarily equate to that, but we're certainly going to be watching for any potential of training, and that's what that was. It was a training of that rounds of heavy rain over these same locations, rounds of heavy rain and thunderstorms. So if we have that potential for training again, that's going to be the big red flag of watch out. This brings the potential then, if we get another round of some training of these storms over a large area, that would be the situation where it would be a big red flag for the potential for more flooding along the Ohio River. And again, it was Lou Vargo, EMA Director, Ohio County, who he mentioned earlier in the show that over 30 years he's never seen anything like this. Seeing that flooding of the Ohio River from one round of flooding to another round in a matter of days, or roughly a week, but you get the idea. I mean, this is a historic wet stretch that we are in right now. And, fortunately the rain, it does look to continue, unfortunately, as we extend for a lot of the next 10 days. We just can't quite shake this wet pattern that we are in. But I can't stress enough, though, even though we do see an unsettled pattern, it does not mean that we're going to be dealing with picking up 2+ inches of rain every time that we're dealing with this unsettled pattern. But as long as this unsettled pattern remains in place, unfortunately, we always run that risk. So that is something we're going to keep a very close eye on a day-by-day basis. And again, looking near term, what we have coming our way Sunday evening nights, more scattered. We do have some thunderstorms in the mix that can yield some locally heavy downpours, but local be the key word, right? This is not going to be a situation where we're dealing with a large area of high rain amounts. And that is where you get the concerning for flooding along the Ohio River, which is exactly what we had for last night. A lot of rain fell along the Ohio River, fell then upstream towards Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, and of course, a lot of that water just flows right back down, and that's the issue we're running into for tomorrow evening. And so, what we have coming our way is not present a flooding risk for the Ohio River. From the scattered nature in those showers and thunderstorms from Sunday evening, Sunday night. And even on a local scale, the flooding threat does not look high, thankfully, into Sunday night. And then we'll dry back up into Monday. And from there is when we'll keep a close eye on how conditions are looking to set up by the middle of next week. And it's just a little too early to tell for certain there where we could be dealing with impacts. And how the situation's setting up for the middle to end of next week. So I wanted to go over the High River Hannibal Lock and Dam for New Martinsville areas. I know some of you were tuning in asking about that. The forecasted crest around 36 feet. So I'm actually going to go back in and share this screen with you guys. Again, we're going back to the Ohio River Forecast Center. And okay. So let's go back into here. And so here's the High River Hannibal Lock and Dam. And the forecast is 36 feet. So if we scroll down here, looking at some of the potential impacts there, 36 feet. So at that point, that 35 feet flooding begins in New Martinsville, on North Main Street near Virginia Street. And then the lower end of Dewar Street in New Martinsville is flooded. So that's when we're anticipated to reach. Not anticipated to reach flooding there at McLeod Avenue, New Martinsville, or extending onto portions of Route 2. Not anticipated to reach to that extent of flooding, but enough that, yes, it will be impacting portions of New Martinsville there at 35 and 36 feet, extending into tomorrow evening. So again, the forecasted crest 36 feet that occurs tomorrow evening. And if you look at the graph here, there's 36.1 feet. And if you go down on the graph, there's 7 o'clock Saturday evening. So there's Saturday evening, early Saturday night. That's when you're going to see that crest occur, and then water slowly recede, and then we'll likely drop back below flood stage there by Sunday evening for the Hannibal, New Martinsville area. So if you're tuning in from those locations, give you an idea on flooding for those areas. What about Bethany, West Virginia? I'm supposed to go there Sunday. So you'll be fine there. Again, this is our flooding concern now is going to be along the Ohio River. We're going to be drying up on Saturday, so we're not going to be dealing with any more local flooding. The flood waters is still high in spots. We still have a flood warning that's in effect till 2 a.m. It was 8 o'clock, but it got extended to 2 a.m. now. Flood warning for all the all the northern panhandle, Tyler, Wetzel County, eastern Ohio. So we're still dealing with that flood warning across a good portion of the area. That's until 2 a.m. Yes, there's still some high water in spots, but by Sunday shouldn't be an issue there in Bethany, Aaron. And towards that evening hours, yes, we'll have some showers and thunderstorms move back in, but the flooding threat is not as high, nearly as high at that point from the more scattered precipitation we're getting coming our way into Sunday night as what it just was for last night. Again, we're not getting a repeat of last night again on Sunday. Watching from New Matamoros. New Matamoros. Sorry, it took me a little bit. It took me a little bit to get that one. So that's where we stand right now. Again, this will be posted so you can go back and look at some of the forecasts for. We were talking about Moundsville, Wheeling area, Powhatan Point. We were touching on all of those locations, and that's where we're likely going to see, just like last time, some of the higher crests. And that's why we're really highlighting those locations. Is that's where we could see some of the worst flooding, unfortunately, just like last time. in terms of looking up and down the Ohio River from East Liverpool, and then looking down even through to Tyler County in our area, like those locations that we highlighted, unfortunately for this area, can deal with some of the worst flooding, just like last time. So, stay tuned for the latest. Of course, if you live along the Ohio River, especially in those locations, the Ohio River forecast page that we've been highlighting, a great resource for you to get the latest forecasts. And I would, again, once the forecast takes into consideration the rain that fell today, it's a good idea to get an update on that tomorrow morning. I could see the forecasted crest going up a little bit, but not a lot, and it could get bumped back a bit. I could see the forecasted crest possibly occurring more early Saturday night. So those are some of the changes I could see happening for tomorrow morning's forecast once it takes into consideration the rain that fell today. So it's a good idea to stay tuned for the latest. Of course, you can join Amanda Varia tomorrow morning for News 9 Saturday morning. And then, of course, join her in the evening hours tomorrow as well, News 9 at 6, 10, 11, for the latest on see where we stand with those water levels cresting. And I'm sure she'll be doing another live video for you guys as well to keep you guys updated on the latest with that. So make sure to stay tuned. So thank you all for joining in. Have a safe weekend. Thankfully, no rain tomorrow, but watch, we'll have more showers and thunderstorms move back in. Thankfully, in terms of any impacts, the risk for that looks low, but we're still dealing with more rain moving back into the area at the end of your day Sunday. So keep an eye on that. But at least a lot of our weekend will be dry. So again, prayers, thoughts are for all of you that live along the Ohio River that unfortunately have to deal with more flooding. I hope everyone does remain safe this weekend as we deal with, unfortunately, more flooding, and fingers crossed that what we have coming our way next week is not going to be a repeat of what we dealt with this week and last week. But wet pattern remains. It's unfortunate. But again, thoughts and prayers to all of you living along the Ohio River, and stay safe this weekend.